Today's session is a really great one on business by design. Perfect timing for this as we're ending the year. I know there's still a lot of stuff to get done before the end of the year, but you're still planning for what's going to be coming ahead in the new year. And with this session, you're going to be able to really have your vision put um, into design. We're going to go over exactly what it means to design your business and the 6 critical steps of business planning and how to create a step-by-step business by design blueprint. So without further ado, I will hand this off to Chad. Go ahead.
All right, Daniel, thank you. And thank you. Great job with the introduction. And that's exactly what we're here to do. And welcome, everyone. I really want to appreciate, first of all, those of you joining the Orem Academy webinar this evening from wherever you are in North America. As a member of the Orem Group and the Orem Group Academy, we thank you. I thank you for being here. Our real purpose is to empower excellence in dentistry. And, obviously we are convening here inside a very important topic for every business owner or key team member in a dental practice. A little bit about myself. I will say a little bit about myself in a moment. I just wanted to confirm here, as I'm noticing we have more people joining the webinar, that again, thank you for joining us. And as Daniel said, please stay till the end of the webinar. We'll have a QR code for your CE credits and also some takeaways for you at the end of the webinar. So we're scheduled for no more than the next hour together. And also, please, as Daniel said, feel free to drop Q&A as we move. I'll make sure that we leave some time at the end for that, which is always important. All right, so again, the topic today is business by design. And let's jump into this. So a quick overview of what we'll be covering. Designing your business. What does it really mean? I will talk and look with you, but I'd like to offer you right off the bat that most business owners and key team members do not really take the time. And if you do, congratulations, you are in the minority. But most, in my experience, do not stop and pause and look. And really, the calendar year is a great time to do that. Most businesses plan on the calendar year, even if you're on a different fiscal year. We're really planning what are our goals by December 31st of next year? What is it that we accomplished that maybe we didn't accomplish if we didn't get together today, 12 months in advance, and do some thinking together? So most teams don't do that thinking, really, or they do it haphazardly or don't put much time to it. So we're going to look at the benefits of doing that, and also the real opportunity to, I'm going to say, inspire and engage your team in a conversation for what's possible. And, I know that it's a hot topic about staff engagement, and sometimes some of you may be having issues with turnover or perhaps filling spaces in your business, perhaps, or you may have a great team, but you also know that your job as the leader is to continue to challenge them and have the practice grow. So designing the business together with your team, said simply, business planning with your team, said even simpler, what's important to us next year as a team to accomplish is a key element of building an engaged and inspired team. Consider it's not you being an inspirational leader all the time or the motivational leader. And I often say I'm almost like the anti-motivation and inspirational coach. Not that I don't think it's good, but I think it lets people off the hook for being accountable for their own inspiration and motivation. And if you expect people to be motivated and inspired by themselves, meaning I'm accountable for that as a team member, one way to ground that is that you are involving them in a business conversation so they can be responsible for staying true to it over the year. I hope that's communicating. But this gives you a foundation and a common focus and common goals to work towards, which is what great teams do. All right, so we're going to get a little bit more into that. 6 critical steps of business planning we will review. I will also give you a take-home guide, which Tanya will be emailing out after our time together here if you're on the call live, so you can actually do the work of business planning. And that will include a blueprint, which will guide you through the questions. And I'm also going to talk more about what you can actually do with your team right now, this month, or early in the year at the latest, to build this kind of momentum and share with them your thoughts and your goals and hear their feedback. And of course, we'll leave you with a couple action items that always make the difference to implement what we're talking about here. All right, briefly, for those of you who I haven't met, as Daniel said, I believe I'm one of the founding members of the Orem Academy team. The Orem Academy team is designed to really close the gap between better clinical outcomes in your practice and in the business of dentistry. And my area, I'm not a doctor. I am a business leader by trade. And I spent the first half of my career being trained in the hospitality business. So I ran many, many different teams throughout North America in 3 international hospitality groups, and learned what it was to go from hourly employee to, an executive. And there's not one conversation probably that I have not had with an employee or with a fellow manager or with an associate in the world of managing people. The hospitality and restaurant business is a great one to learn from. The second half of my career, I've had the privilege of working internationally as a business consultant, specifically in team development and high performance teams. And I've learned from some of the best leaders in the company and worked with some of the best leadership teams. And the key point takeaway here is whether you're a Disney or you're a 5-person dental practice team, the foundation of great teams, the foundation of great communication, and the foundation of having some great systems to help you manage people are all the same. And we're conquering one of the great commonalities today, which is you must have a plan and you must be able to communicate your plan to your people, right? So that's what this is all about. So what does it mean to design your business? I believe that this is one of the most sacred conversations you can have. I was talking to Dan and Tanya before the call. I said, this is my favorite time of year. And some people think it's because of Hanukkah or because of Christmas or because of presents or spirits or great food or family, and all those things are important. But for me, it's because we get to design our businesses. It's planning season. And planning season means we get to complete what has been and we get to create what is to come. And it can really be a spiritual journey in many regards. However that resonates for you. It is the circle of life here in your business. You have the opportunity to stop and reset and to breathe and then to create. And an analogy sometimes, which is great to use in designing something, is like a painter. If you're an artist, you'll understand this, but the condition for an artist to paint something new is the condition called a blank canvas. Right? I need a blank canvas to create something new. But most of us don't ever get to a blank canvas in our businesses. 1 year rolls into the next year, rolls into the next year, and perhaps there's nothing in the calendar that has you stop and say, let's breathe here. Let's stop and think. Let's celebrate the success from last year. Let's look at what worked and didn't work. And let's get to a place where we have clarity and some space and room in our head and in our thinking to ask some bigger questions. What's most important next year? What would be the best accomplishment for us as a team? Where do I need this business to go as a business leader to be aligned with my life vision and where I want to be in my life? It's very important as small business owners that our businesses are serving a purpose. And most of us want to design our business to serve our life purpose. And when they get disconnected, all of a sudden we just got a job again. And that's probably not why you decided to take the risk to be an entrepreneur and small business owner. Or if you're somebody who leads your team and you relate to yourself as one of the leaders of your business, the same is true for you. We didn't get into leadership just because you made all the extra money, which often is not the case, right? You have a lot more responsibility. And when that gets disconnected to a bigger purpose or a bigger vision, then it just becomes putting out fires. So taking care of this is an important aspect. I know I'm repetitive in saying that. I'm excited for you, though, to look at this whole deal about designing your business. One last point on it before we get into the meat and potatoes is designing your business might have you inquire into what does it look like not to do that. So most people when you look out into the future, called next year, 2024 in this case, you might say to yourself that you can't really design it because there's a lot of things that are already fixed. You know, most of us don't think about the future in business as being really malleable. Like you can craft your work of art out of it. It looks more like there's a lot that's already happening that you have to kind of deal with and survive and make the best of. At least try on that's a default way to approach a conversation. And I'm really spending time up front here to invite you to slow down and think about the possibility that if we get to this place of nothing, of a blank canvas in our mindset and with our team, we can actually, maybe for the first time since you started your practice, start to design it newly, start to create things in the future and put some ideas out in the future, which you can organize for that never would have showed up as possible if we just rolled unconsciously into the fixed year ahead. Okay, so with all that said, I'm inviting you to keep that open kind of mind and get excited about what you could expand and create into next year versus just project some sales, some revenue, some labor costs, some profitability, which of course we're always going to do in any business plan. But the most exciting part is setting the field for the game to be played, not just continuing to play the game. Here we go. So here's the 6 key elements. And I do invite you, I know I'm going to give you a guide to download, but I do invite you to have a blank piece of paper, like your blank painter's canvas, and take notes. You know, as I go through this in the next 30 minutes or so, you're going to be able to capture a lot of your thinking. So if you're multitasking right now or doing something else, I invite you to stop and actually start to create value for next year. You know, as we go through each of these 6 areas and I deepen them a little bit with you, you're going to have insights. And it doesn't take a long time to start to get to the point where you've got new ideas flowing that you can organize a plan around for and then share with the appropriate people in your business. So starting up top, vision. Said simply here, and again, I'm going to deep dive each one of these following this slide, but vision answers the question, what are we building? And that's why this is so exciting for an entrepreneur or a business owner or a team leader, because it's your team, it's your business, it's your future, it's your vision. And it does start with you because you're the one who opened the door and opened the business and pays the bills or leads the team. So it's useful to stop and ask, what am I building here? And I'll give you some more questions to answer and formulate that from in a moment. But it answers the question, what are we building? Okay. The mission of your organization answers the question, why are we building it? So now that we know where we're going and what we're building, why are we building that? Those two are like the front and back of the hand. They come together and they're both important aspects. Number 3 is your scoreboard. So your scoreboard is simply you deciding what's most important for you to measure. So in other words, what results do you want to measure? I like the visual of a scoreboard. You know, when I work with teams, I ask them to think about being on a basketball court and they look up at center court and they see one of those big, you know, hockey arena or a basketball court, and you have the big electronic scoreboard. And it's very important to not have 50 different things to measure on that one scoreboard. You may have a lot of other stats and data that you can deep dive and, you know, what do you say, like click on, go deeper on, right? But you want your 2 or 3, probably no more than 4 key metrics and measures that are important for your business success, for the revenue, for the profitability, for the customer satisfaction, for the client care, for the health and safety standards. You want those front and center so that your team can measure their success, and also so you can know where you start to go off track and self-correct quickly. So think of that as, what do you want to measure? Because we're going to go play the game. You know, we're going to go now see the patients. We're going to make our phone calls. We're going to do our customer follow-ups. We're going to do the running of the business. And we can't always have our head up staring at the scoreboard. We got to be with the people in front of us And in your business, of course, taking great care in what we're doing chairside. But you do need to be able to take a breath at the quarter point or at the monthly point, at quarter time or at halftime, to adjust throughout the year. It creates the game because we want to win. So the scoreboard also says, how do we know we're winning, right? We do have to measure the business, and your team and your staff, a mature and high performance team, have a great relationship to some key business metrics that they can all share together in and be responsible for, because ultimately you are running a business. Okay, but it can include great patient care as an example and your metric for that, and probably should. Okay, number 4, strategies. So strategies are going to answer the question, what will make this business successful over time? So we've started to create the vision, where we're going, the mission, why we're going there, the scoreboard, what we're going to measure. And then we say, see, it's starting to create the game, right? If you think of it as a game, now we're going to say, now, how do we win that game? What are our strategies for winning that game? Every great sports team has their own version of strategies. I know I'm carrying through the sports analogy here, but you too as a team have your own strategies. If what's important to you is customer care, and I'm sure it is, and satisfaction, what are your key strategies to ensure that that's elevated or stays at the, if it's where you want it to be now, what's your strategy to keep doing what you're doing? If there's room to grow or improve, what's your strategy to close that gap, right? And your scoreboard helps you measure that. A good scoreboard always says, we have to be able to measure it, that we started here, and we can measure it after the fact and say, did we improve or not? So strategies are linked to your scoreboard because your strategies want to move the scoreboard from you implementing them. Okay, and we'll get a little bit more into that. Number 5 is then you move to your action plans. Now, by the way, in my experience of working with many, many, many teams, lots of teams, because they're entrepreneurial and good people and hard workers, they want to jump right into action plans, don't they? And I'm sure a lot of you will have that kind of perhaps pull for you to just get into action, or you have members of the team who say, enough talk. I'm so tired of hearing Chad talk already. It's only been 10 minutes. Let's just get to the action. But you can't get to the action if you don't take care of your vision, mission, scoreboard, and strategies first. Really. I mean, you can, but what you're going to have is a disorganized, uncoordinated team putting out fires, running around with too many priorities. If you have people complaining, things always change around here, there's too many priorities. I don't know who's, too many associate doctors with different views, giving us different marching orders. All of that is symptoms of a lack of alignment around vision, mission, scoreboard, and strategies. I hope that's communicating, but that's why I'm encouraging you to slow down this year if you and create some space for yourself, first as the leader, and then with your team, to really think through some of these things. Your actions become much more clear once the other 4 elements are, created and started to be put on paper. But also a pitfall of actions is that people, again, don't know what the priority are. But once you do the first 4 steps, you can really ask, okay, given what we're up to this year, that this is where we're going, this is why we're doing it, this is how we're going to measure it, and here's our best strategies to make it happen. Now you can ask, what are the priorities for Q1? Given that this is where we're going to be at the end of the year, say the end of 2024, and this is your scoreboard's measuring the 12 months, you could say then, and looking at all our strategies, what would be the natural projects, workflows, areas of improvement that we want to action, in what order? And then your team can help you as well, provide those. You see, you're creating this plan together at this point, not just presenting a plan like, I have the answer, now you guys go do the work. That never creates great buy-in, and people don't really change behavior with that because it's not their plan, it's yours. And you didn't do the thinking that they would have contributed to you if you had asked. So involve people in this process. And then you can say, well, it sounds like a great 2 priorities for Q1. We're going to work on X and we're going to work on Y, and we're going to measure that between January and March. And then that would make sense once those 2 things are in place. Then we would move to Q2 priorities, which are these 2 areas, because we need the Q1 to take care of that bucket first. Then we'll move to Q2. And of course, in Q4, we'll create a whole new foundation to go to the next level of implementation in this area. All right. So that's the kind of strategic thinking that this allows you to do. And then actions are not just everyone's good idea and the boss's great idea and too much work for everyone in their mind, and then complaints and there's too much to do and I don't have enough time. And all of that is, quite frankly, BS to a large degree. It happens on teams. Good people say those things, but it's generally because we haven't hit these 6 areas. And the last one that really closes the door on any excuses, because excuses robs us of energy and time and teamwork, and it's just not fun. Great cultures don't live in excuses. They live in actions and proposals and requests. So everyone, key accountability is number 6, asks or answers the question, who is needed, where, and when, right? Who is needed, where, and when. And that's where you got to get a bit more granular. And you've got the action plan, but are we clear whose roles and accountabilities are in place to actually do the work? Okay, so I'll take a sip of water. By the way, I know I do have a tendency to speak quickly, but I know I'm with the right group for hearing it and actioning it. Given who you are in your business every day, I know you are in a fast-paced business too. So I'm trying to get as much in as I can in a short period of time, but let's now look at step 1. So again, it answers the question, vision. What are you building? Right? Good question. So if I did nothing else here, you could just start with your blank piece of paper, write that at the top, and then take notes for yourself. You know, for those of you who are the practice owners or leaders, you know, you may want to go home on the weekend and take time, have some fun, make some notes. If typing on your computer works better, do that. But just start to design it like a great artist would with their painting. What are you building? So, a couple questions here. These are the bigger questions. How do you want to design your life? So, this is very important as an entrepreneur and business owner, executive of your company. You're not doing this probably to pass time. I would imagine that this is it for the most part. Now, there may be a big exit strategy for you in a number of years, but even that, even more to the point, is that has to be a big exit strategy to build on what's next. So what is next? What are the different scenarios you're thinking about? For those of you with families, you know, what's important to the family? How do you want your life to look? This includes what level of income do we need to be at? What does a business need to be valued at? Where do we want to be living? How much time should we have on our vacation? What would be ideal? Let's not get caught up, by the way, in how we're going to make it happen or the current state of it, because we want to start with the end in mind. And for some of you, I know it's common when you first started, again, you might have had maybe even been more connected to this earlier, for those of you who are a bit down the path, and maybe you lost sight of some of these bigger questions, or maybe even got a bit resigned or cynical that you could still go after it. Well, I invite you to revisit it. And if you're at the beginning of your career or business cycle, this is the best opportunity to keep this real each and every year for yourself and build on the success of it. Okay, so how do you want to design your life? And you can look at all the different areas of life. Now describe from there, what will the business look like in 3 or 5 or 10 years? But see, first I want to look at my life and say, well, this is where we'd be. My wife and I would be doing this. Our kids would be in college. We'd like to be half retired, or in 3 or you know, I want to blow this thing out. I want 10 practices within 10 years, and then look to double again within the next 10 years and pass it along to my kids who are in school right now to become the future doctors of the world. I don't know. I know that those are all common places, though, that people could be in. So you answer that, then describe the business. See, the business wants to be a vehicle for your life success, not the other way around, not something to be survived. So what does a business look like in 3 or 5 or 10 years against your life's direction? By the way, I do encourage, and the teams I work with, they create a future. You know, I think 3 or 5 years is generally a good future to declare as far as a timeline from where you are today. 3 years is probably pretty good for a small business because it gives you enough runway not to be able to answer all the questions clearly. Like, people won't get too caught up with, well, how are we going to do that? Well, we got 3 years to figure it out. Relax. It's not like this is pie in the sky, we can find the answers, and we'll do that together. That's part of what's exciting here. If you get too far out, like a 10-year vision, some of your staff, they don't even maybe see themselves necessarily being in the business for the next year. I don't know. So they don't really connect to a longer vision like that. So even if you have a longer vision, like 10 years in your life, you want to pull it back to something that people can get their hands around in your business. All right. So in other words, we're going into 2024. You may create like a 2027 or 2026 vision. By the end of 2026, here's what the business looks like. And you know that having accomplished that by December 31st, 2026 would be a major milestone on the next path of your master plan. All right, what type of company is this? Well, again, this is the deck not built specifically for dental practices per se, although this is still a good question to ask, because as I understand, you have many different types of companies you can be in as a dentist and a practice owner these days. You could be the super GP, you could be the specialized GP, you could be the generalist GP, you could be the GP who leads in technology or in this one procedure or in this new innovation or this very specialized field. So I appreciate that. And it's important to say, what type of dental company are you? What type of dentist practice are you? What do you specialize in? Very important to be able to say that for many reasons, let alone that you're clear on making decisions and priorities and what fits and what you're going to invest in and what you're not going to invest in because of the direction you're going. Who are our target customers? Always good to revisit, right? Who's our bullseye? You may have many different rings on your bullseye, but who is your perfect customer? Who, if you could, would you just do business with all day long? The customers that make you the most make you most happy and make you most profit, likely would be the ones that you would want to attract more of. And of course, you serve other types of customers outside of that perfect customer, but your marketing should target your perfect customer. That's part of your vision. What is the geographical area? Again, are you a standalone practice? Are you multi-unit? How does your business model look that way? There's no right answer, by the way. I often say, in this extra kind of exercise, sometimes people are like, we have to go bigger. I'm like, well, you may not want to go bigger. Is that what you want? Do you want more complexity? Do you want more staff to manage? Do you want more accountants to talk to? You may not. So I'm never the one to say go bigger. I want the quality of what you're creating to be exactly what you see and envision, and then you design it that way. Just to add to the pie here, because some teams will hear business planning as, oh, they're going to ask us to do more. No, not necessarily, and that's something that you can inoculate with your team early on and say, this is not necessarily about going bigger or asking you to do more. This is about us being more efficient, more coordinated, and more in communication as a team for what really matters. Let's work on what really matters. Okay. What key products and services do we offer? Right? Again, don't assume that everyone knows. And are there opportunities to get into different product lines, offer different services? This again goes into your business model. Where are your margins? What contributes to the bottom line? What kind of work would you like to be doing if you could? You hear other doctors or dentists or practices excelling in this area. Is that something you want to transition into? Well, let's put together a strategy and a plan to start to move in that direction. But you can start to speculate here. Again, that's why giving yourself a 3-year vision as a minimum, and you're going to work backwards to the end of this year, but you start with your 3-year vision. It gives you room to grow into something without being panicked or handcuffed by the creative process. What could you be in within 3 years? What differentiates you if you think back out to the end of 2026, the end of 2027? What does your practice look like? Are you different than other practices? Do you need to be different than other practices? And of course, we do deal with what sales goals are you striving for. But again, most companies and teams skip everything else I've talked about, and their annual planning is some version of, okay, what are our sales going to be next year? And then usually in a traditional kind of sales company, a sales manager will say, we're going to do 10% more because that's what my boss told me to say. And then everyone goes, okay, 10% more. And everyone does what they were already doing for the last year and maybe try to work harder, but there's no new thinking. They're just more demanding, and it's not engaging or inspiring. And there's no collaboration for the most part with most average teams. All right, is this making sense so far? Good. I see some nodding and thumbs up, so thank you. I'm going to keep going. So that's step one. Let's look at step two. Mission. So this answers a question, what are we building? Or excuse me, why are we building it? All right. So for yourself, how does this business help fulfill your life vision? If we are at this point in 3 years or 5 years, how does that line up with what we have planned as a family? What does it have? How does that line up with what we have planned in our bank account and what we can contribute to others, where we're living, the quality of life, our lifestyle, our spirituality, our hobbies, our outdoorsness, our indoorsness, whatever it is for you, our world travel. Okay. Again, the key here is to keep connecting it, that you are designing your business to be a vehicle for your self-expression and for what you see as possible for your life being great. And along the way, you're going to attract a team who their personal concerns can be fulfilled in the vision you created as well. They see that being with this company can make my life great because I'm aligned with the values and the mission around here. And this makes sense for me. And I'll build my acumen, I'll build my professionalism, and I'll train and develop myself inside this great culture. Okay. So why does this business exist? Is a good question to ask too. And this now gets more to your team. I know, being healthcare professionals, that many of you, I would guess all of you, in my experience, everyone in this business is deeply connected to making a difference for human beings. You know, you are in healthcare and you care for human beings and you make people feel better and you alleviate pain and you create solutions for people to feel great about themselves and their smile and their appearance and their functionality and their health. And so obviously it's already built in many ways that being in healthcare, you exist to serve people. Is that articulated in your business in a way that's real for you? Is your team present to that's what you're doing there? Again, in my experience of working with some teams more in hospital systems, you know, some staff over time, they forget why they even got into healthcare, whether they're doctors or their support staff, why they went to school for many years in most cases was to serve others. And then it just became a job at some point. So are you connected to the difference that you make and that the team makes? Is there a way that you've articulated that? And it doesn't have to be complicated, but is it said? Is it talked about? What's the intention behind the business? Another way of asking that the question above. You know, your intention of the business is to provide people with something, provide people with confidence and health, and to feel great about themselves and to give them confidence. I don't know, you know, again, for you to articulate. Why did you start the business in the first place? For those of you who are the source of your business, the owner of the business, or you bought the business, why did you start it? And if you're somebody who leads the team in the business, why are you interested in leading the team? What about it is it that you're passionate about? What are your customers left in the presence of after being with you? So just said briefly, what does that mean, in the presence of? Well, we all know in customer service, in just most customer service, think about restaurants for a moment, but you go in and you can have a great restaurant experience or you can have a really crummy restaurant experience, right? And we know if no one greets you on time and the server or the host is in a bad mood, the food's cold, they make mistakes. We all know there's certain definite service checkpoints that if a restaurant fails to deliver, well, we're not left in the presence of excellence. We're not left in the presence of feeling great. We're not left in the presence of our family or our love or our loyalty or our happiness or our celebration or whatever, or just efficiency. like presence of speed and efficiency and professionalism, if you're just there in a business meeting, that's the kind of presence we're talking about. So what is that for your office? What is that for your practice? What do you want your patients left with as they walk out the door, or they hang up the phone with you, or they read an email from you? They're left in the presence of what? Professionalism, trust, care, real people, service. So you can start to articulate some of these things that are there for us as a presence. And it's a great conversation with your team to ask the question. And I find relating it to customer service, restaurants or retail is a great way to have them talk about some of their great experiences or not so great experiences. And then how are you leaving people? Are there some gaps? And if you could create a presence for your customers, what would you choose? And this starts to create the mission that you're fulfilling. You see, it's not just a poster you stick on the wall that somebody created for you. You can create a paragraph on your mission. You can create 4 sentences. There's no right way to do it. But in my experience, again, it needs to come from the heart and from you and the team and say, this is why we're in business, folks. And it becomes your why you're building the vision. Why do you care about the long-term vision? Is because we get to give more of this to people. And why do you care about growing potentially? Because we could impact more people the way that we're specially oriented to impact people. It's exciting. Okay. What do your products or services provide the world? So a bigger question. Obviously, you're not doing business in the world. However, it's fine to take the reach to say us doing a great job in our geographical area impacts lots of people. Those people are connected to many people. If we can have them be left through our products and services with this kind of experience that enriches their life, that makes them feel better, that makes them better parents, better husbands, better employees, because we've taken care of them with such professionalism and efficiency and high regard, well, you could start to get connected to you are making a difference in the world through what you provide. And then last good question to ask is, what can we be the best in the world at? Okay, what can we be the best in the world at? This helps define if there is only one thing you could provide your patients or your service, your customers, what would you want to be known as? What do you want people saying about you, right? What would you want the bold headlines in the newspaper to read about you and your team? And is there a way for you to get to differentiate yourself? Not trying to swim in the red ocean with everyone else going after the same thing. Can you become famous at this one piece of dentistry that might make you, as we say, in the blue ocean, right? You're the only one swimming with all the opportunity because you're focusing on a core competency that you have. So again, everyone, these questions that kind of is meant to create some new thinking. And for you to start to answer them, I promise what you'll do is you'll find some key phrases or foundational sentences that resonate with you. And that can start to be put into this vision and mission kind of paragraph. When I work with teams, I'll help facilitate a conversation where the team will get to a point where they say, that's it. That's it. And, so you need to kind of work with it yourself and maybe make a proposal to your team. Or you may already have this in place and it may be really alive for you, and that's great. Then this will resonate with you. Okay, step 3, business plan. Now we're going to start to get into more traditional business planning. But you see, without do the first 2 steps, we're just going to do some academic exercise that an accountant does. God bless the accountants. But the accountants just measure something. Step 1 and 2 had you as a team define that something that you want the accountants to measure. And it expanded perhaps the thinking and what you want to create actions and strategies for. So now we got to say, what results will we measure? We know where we want to be in 3 years. We're going to back that up now to the end of the next 12 months. Well, what would it look like? Yes. So let's look at some questions that you can use to define it. What are your objectives and what are the results you want over the next 3 years? Right. And then backing from 3 years out backwards, not forwards. Forwards just gives us more of a predictable future because we look at the past and we say, well, here are, as an example, our sales last year were X. So we want 10% more. So this year it will be this way, and then 10% more will be this way. And even if 10% is aspirational, there's no creative thinking in that. Let go of what was happened last year, be informed by it, but don't be constrained by it. Go to 3 years in the future and say, what was it that really lit us up? And then say, what would the sales look like given what we were out to fulfill with our vision and mission? Well, we would probably be doing X amount. Then work backwards, and maybe year 3 that you're living into was a bigger jump, and year 2 wasn't, and maybe year 1, like the next year coming up, is a foundational year, and you might even be flat for the year. Some companies may even go down in sales for a year to design and build a foundation for what they really want. But if we just keep going from the past, we never stop and actually do the right kind of work to achieve the future that we really want. So again, back to here, we're looking at what are my objectives and results. You can just start to note those down, you brainstorm them. Some of these will go into the next section too, but that's fine, which are strategies. But this is just now, given what you've said there, what's important for you to accomplish over the next 3 years. Another way to say this is, what do you want more of over time? So if we're looking at a scoreboard, I want more sales over time. I want more happy customers and clients over time. What do I want less of over time? I want less complaints. I want less refits or revisits. I want less remakes. I want less downtime. I want less, you can keep filling in the blanks. You guys are experts in your business, but that's the kind of thing you want to start to look at, because then you can see that's what we need to measure. Attention flows were basically on what you measure. So, and your staff will always rally around what you're measuring, because you're saying this is more important than something else. So what do you want more of? What do you want less of? It should be measured. Where are you today? And where do you want to be? So that starts to, now you think about graphing something. Another way to think about the scoreboard, it needs to be measurable. It needs to be graphable. So it started here, and then it went to here, or it stayed flat, or it went down. So you need a starting point, and then you need your goal measured, where you want to be by when. What are the key performance indicators in your business to know you're on track? So although sales, as an example, or revenue may be something, well, you obviously are going to measure that, and you're going to measure profitability, some percentage of sales that is profit. Those aren't necessarily key performance indicators. Key performance indicators are more ones that you can look at on a daily, but definitely on a monthly, definitely on a quarterly, but more monthly at the very least. You can look at it, and they're an indicator of your performance. That is, they're an indicator of how you're doing in the business. Sales are a lagging indicator. Key performance indicator is really one that's key. It's one that you can action. So it may be amount of callbacks from customer complaints, or it may be how many missed appointments, right, would be a key performance indicator, because that's a leading indicator of your revenue for that month. And if you get ahead of your appointment scheduling and your efficiency in that, you know that that will lead to increased sales, because you have more people in the chair more often. So that makes sense. But so you want to do some thinking with your team. If you only measure revenue, it's lazy, because no one's, and your staff generally don't care too much about the revenue or profit, although they should, and you can have them care about it over time. They do care more about what they can actually control, which would be a calendar system, which would be a callback system, which would be filling the calendar, as an example. Okay, so that's a little bit of thinking there. And then how will you measure these so they are tracked in real time over time? So, you have to answer that question. Is this data readily available? How will you put it into a simple form? Keep things simple. You don't need to complicate things and spend 6 months figuring out how to measure something. Write it down on a piece of paper each month, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, or if you have a more robust accounting system, fine. But pick your scoreboard that's at the top of the arena, the 2, 3, or 4 things that you're going to track throughout the year. And in fact, throughout the 3-year vision that you have, I'm using 3 years as an example, and know that those are the ones that will wake you up and that the team can relate to. All right. So I'm going to go a little quicker here, but your strategies are next, and that's important. That answers a question, what will make this business successful over time? So you're going to answer the question, really, how will this business be built? What business? The one with the vision, with the mission, with the scoreboard, right? That one. How do we make that happen? We want those numbers. We want that kind of vision. We want that kind of customer care and presence for them. So now let's talk. What's important for us? What are the strategies? What business model should we be in? Is there a strategic conversation around the revenue model, the products and services that we focus on? Do we need to shift? Do we need to start to transition or not? Do we need to add to our marketing strategies? Our marketing strategy representing who we need to be in the future today? Does it give us something to grow into? How are we building customer loyalty? How are we attracting and retaining the best team members? And how are we building our people culture? These are all just examples that will start to have you think about, do we have key strategies in place for the key areas of the business? Driving growth, driving customer service, driving people culture, and driving our marketing efforts, right? And then for some of you, and for many of you at some point, also including what's our exit strategy? What's the real end game here, and where do we want to maximize and leverage growth to maximize our exit strategy, whatever that looks like, whether it's passing it on to family, selling the business, or growing into a multi-unit structure. All right. Step 5, action plans. So finally, the work to be done. Again, notice most business planning efforts start with this. What do we need to do next year to be better? Everything else was missed or just kind of not thought through, or maybe was in the owner's head, but it wasn't incorporated with the team. So now people are just looking at this going, oh, okay, more work. I'm already underpaid and overworked. And now we're going to listen to this. That's why most people don't do business planning, because it doesn't work very well if you miss some of these steps. What are the priorities in the business? Given the other 5 elements we've now talked about, where do you think we should start? What projects are urgent to accomplish? What workflows or responsibilities need to be carried out? You start to get into who's doing what, and what are the projects, and what are the things maybe we talked about for 5 years but never worked that now really are important? Or what have we talked about for 5 years that we're never going to talk about again because we never implemented it for a reason? And let's just tell the truth about it and stop talking about it, because this is where you confront your calendar, everyone. And when people say there's only so much time to get things done, it's true. There's only so much time to get things done. But when people aren't complaining about that and they're more dealing with it responsibly, like, boss, okay, I got, in the next 3 months, how much bandwidth do we have to implement how many projects? We have to decide on our priorities, because I can commit 6 hours a week to something new on top of our other ones, unless we move this and this and this, or we share accountability there, but you get creative with people. And if the future that you declared demands that something needs to be done in Q1 of 2024, well, you got to confront that as a business owner, because if you don't get it done by March 31st, you're going to be well behind. And then the integrity of your whole future is on a weak foundation. I hope that makes sense. So by designing it out 3 years, you really confront what are our priorities, how are we spending our time and money and our resources, and what are we going to choose to do, and what are we going to stop doing because we just can't do it anymore, given where we're going. All right, what must be accomplished this year to have it be a success? If you had no other question to start with your team, this is a great question in a focus group with your team. Get your team together and say, hey guys, let's think about it. By the end of next year, imagine we're sitting here 12 months from today, and we're got a little glass of something Christmas-like that we're holding up, and we're very proud because we said, congratulations, we accomplished this. What is it that we would say we accomplished? And just have people start talking, and you'll be surprised what they come up with, because they're going to tell you all the things that they're inspired to do and what they think you should be doing. But it's a team conversation, and you can get a pretty good sense of some of your priorities and action plans from that conversation. All right. And then, of course, in action plans, you need to include the activity itself, the name, who's accountable, and the date by when it will be done. That's just a best practice. It's not an action plan if it doesn't have a specific action listed, a name and a date by when. Okay, lastly, step 6, key accountabilities. So now we're going to confront the work to be done. Now, this is when everyone sits around the table and stares at each other because you say, okay, who's going to do this? And everyone looks at you probably and goes, you. So you want to have some fun with this, but in high performance, you've got to say who's doing what and confront the calendar, confront time, confront people's maybe resistance to adding something to their perfectly structured life. And you got to start, if you want to grow and you want to people embrace change, you got to be able to poke into some of that. You start with yourself, because to grow into a bigger future does disrupt the status quo, but not because you need to be disruptive. It's not to be a jerk. It's not to upset people. It's not to upset your life. You can grow into it for responsibly, but it does probably take a straight conversation to say, we're probably going to have to do some new things together. And can we all be open to that and the evolution of our business and our roles around here? Because if we just stay the same, we're going to be the same 3 years from now. You know, if we don't do anything different, it's fine. We'll still be a pretty good group, but we're going to miss opportunity. I want opportunity. I want, you know, us to expand into some of these roles. I want you guys to feel growth, but to do that, we got to have each other's back in this learning curve. And that's kind of a learning curve that never ends with great teams. They're always open to master something new and to incorporate something new. So think about your business 1 year from now. You know, what are the positions needed in the company? This could be if you're growing. Often you can look and say, what would our org chart look like 12 months from today? Do we need more resources? In your case, it's probably not as significant, but the key thing here is you can start to unhinge people from their roles and their identity a little bit and create more of a team. You know, the truth is everyone is replaceable, and you don't want to replace people in your business because it works better to have a team that's cohesive over time together. And if you need changing roles, people for high performance, they want to be able to embrace some change and not be protective and defensive of what they know and that no one else can get into their sandbox. And I know from working on smaller teams and coaching smaller teams, often that is a smaller office dynamic that can happen. So it's important to kind of start to ask for people to help you in this way, that we can cross-train people. We can be more efficient together. You don't want the company to just be in silos where there's just one person who knows everything. It's not the way that you envision the business working. And no one's job's at risk unless it is. You should have a one-on-one conversation. But let's take the case you love everyone there doing what they're doing. So, you know, take the risk away, but say, and we're not going to be held hostage by any one of us in any one position. So let's deal with that. That starts to get into that. So you can kind of design what would the perfect team look like. You know, sometimes if you're designing a future that requires a reinvention of your structure in the office, you got to start with a blank canvas, take the names out so Susie and Tom don't get upset, and take your associate names out and say, here's what the organization would look like in an org chart 3 years from now. And it may be an exercise you just do on your own as a business owner, but you can start to see where there may be some holes or where you need to add associates for growth or where you need to develop a new team for optimal efficiency, right? And it may not quite look like your current team. And then if it requires some transition, you can start to have those conversations throughout the next year to move in that direction. So identify your future gaps, if there are some. Is it clear who reports to who on your team? Clean all that stuff up. Are there any gray areas in people's job duties, descriptions, or expectations? Very important to have clear roles and responsibilities so people can feel at peace getting and moving and expanding themselves and being acknowledged for what they are doing. All right, so that is it. Those are the 6 key areas. Again, we're going to give you this business by design planning blueprint. And there it is. We want to keep things simple. Obviously, you can expand those boxes, but you're answering those questions, and that will get you going in the right direction for sure. All right, one quick thing here, just as we complete, I promised you a bonus around building momentum with your team. This fits very nicely, this model here. And this talks about, you know, one model here, I'm going to show you this wheel, And the whole point here is that this builds inertia on teams. This is slow. This is sluggish. So you see up top, you have the vision as the leader. And I'm speaking about this in a business planning context. So you have the vision, you have your plan. Most leaders work it out alone. You see on the left, and then they devise their plan alone, and then they may hold a meeting kind of and inform their team. All of that will give you low performing results. You're going in the wrong direction. Okay. What you can do out of this conversation and work towards, or double down on if you already do, is you work in this direction. Go in the flow of the wheel, which is you have your vision, you include your team early. Don't work it all out on your own. Do a little bit on your own. Get to a point where you can articulate something, but include people. Here's what I'm thinking, team. I want to get a huddle together. I want to, at the Christmas party, spend 5 minutes talking about the future. Just don't do the usual Christmas party. Do that future kind of talk and inspiration, and say, I want to host some other sessions on this and get your feedback. So you're including the team. Then you're actually getting them together and the key people to do some planning together. Get it on a document, get it on a piece of paper, get it on a Word doc and a Google Doc, share it, create it together. And then you see what's going to happen is you're going to execute together, because teams who plan together execute together. I own it because I did it with you, because I inputted from the beginning, because you included me from the beginning, because you care about my view. And so I'm here with you at the table. I'm the author of it. And so of course I care more, and I'm going to execute together, and I can share it with other people as my own, right? Not just your plan, it's our plan. And that creates momentum, that feeds momentum. And if you do that and you have set points to meet throughout the year, quarterly at the very least, where you're measuring your performance, you're reminding people of the big picture, the 3-year, your goals for this year, and your key priorities, and what's working, what's not working, what did we hit, what didn't we hit, where do we need to recalibrate. That's all great culture, and you'll build a lot of accountability and sense of accomplishment and engagement and inspiration, because people are authentically working on the business together. Final takeaways. Remember, the future is a blank canvas. So the question really is, what do you want to paint? Vision gets translated to reality through a well thought out and logical plan. So once you got your vision, you got to ground it in reality, and that allows people to engage in what you see in your head and make it a reality. An aligned team allows you to accomplish more in a shorter period of time with more impact. So we all know that. You can accomplish way more. You can accomplish more in 1 year than you could in 5 years by practicing some of these and putting them in place, for sure. It's just undoubtedly you can produce well more and with less effort by this kind of thinking and process. So action items: download the Business by Design Blueprint workbook. We're going to get that out to you by email. Design your future, however you want to start that. It's all in a conversation. It can be very informal to start, and then do some thinking for yourself over the next few weeks as you launch the new year. Share it with your team, share your thinking, build some momentum by sharing it with them, getting their feedback. What's working, what's not, what can we improve? What do you think by the end of the year, where could we be? What do you think, guys? Schedule regular team huddles to review, plan, and adjust in real time. And that's it. All right, so I'm right at time here. As always, I just put this up here. If you enjoy this content, I have a video series you're welcome to scan, and I will send that to you. It's all around leading your team to success. And with that said, Dan, if there's any questions, but I know we got the QR code, we want to honor people's time. So thank you for having me and allowing me to host this. And as always, thanks to the Orem Group for our deep commitment to, making all our businesses better together, right?
Oh, thank you very much, Chad. That was really well done. Really gives people 6 actionable plans or items that they can use to take their vision and make it a reality. Great timing as well, as we're heading into the new year. So everyone can be motivated to make 2024 the best one yet. So if there are any questions, people can put them into the question and answer box. And while we're doing that, what I'll do is put up the QR codes for everyone. So this first one here is for the Orem events page. You can check out all the upcoming webinars we have, as well as in-person events if you're in and around Calgary or want to attend one of our kind of traveling road shows of the Orem Academy. I'll also put up the next one here. And this one is for your CE points, just a quick survey that you fill out, and we'll get that CE off to you most likely tomorrow. You'll also see that workbook that Chad was demonstrating.
Great.
So I'll come off share. It looks like we do have a question. Oh, more of a comment, just saying thank you for a great session.
Well, you are welcome. All right, well, brilliant. Thanks, Dan. Thank you all. Have a wonderful holiday season, and I'm sure we'll see you all on a future webinar, or love to see in person. As Dan says, check out that Orem Academy page. We are going across North America, myself and other Academy members this year, so look forward to seeing you in person.